Hey everyone, how's it going? I'm Clayton, Associate Production Director on WoW Classic. Excited to be talking about Cataclysm today.
Hello, hello. I'm Linny Cooke and I am a game producer on Cataclysm, or on WoW Classic, but specifically right now Cataclysm, and also very excited to chat with everyone.
Well, I'm Crix. I just am obsessed with World of Warcraft, and I have the honor to be able to interview some of the devs about Cata, which got some questions here I'm really excited to hear about. And yeah,
Great,
thank you
us
guys for
too.
spending the time today. I appreciate it.
Absolutely.
Yeah, thanks for having us.
Oh, we can get right into it. Yeah, we're good. So to start, we just had raid testing last week, and I kind of just want to see how you guys are feeling about that first round of raid testing. The difficulty felt pretty good, and it seems well received outside of the obvious bugs that you can expect from the first raid testing. So yeah, what are you guys' thoughts on that?
Oh, feeling good about it. It actually, funny, we're in the middle of, yeah, actually, literally right now, we are starting another round of raid testing. So that started at 1 p.m. today and will be going through Friday. We were able to find some really, really valuable bugs from the previous
Mm-hmm.
set of testing and got those fixes in. So we're excited to see what everybody thinks as things are running really smooth.
Okay.
Yeah, anytime we do these, feedback, whether it's through in-game or just through various community channels, it's invaluable. Uh,
Mm.
but the first one accomplished a lot of what we wanted it to accomplish, which was, really getting players in there, playing through these, testing out heroics with the gear that we set up on the vendors, and finding out what bugs still existed, and then just hammering through them in time for the second round starting today and running through this week in
Cool.
advance of next week's launch and especially the week after that of the raids going live.
It was also a really cool opportunity just to see all of the combat updates that come with Cataclysm, seeing all of that in action and how players felt about that in that actual raid setting.
Okay. And since we're on the topic, the raids and the dungeons are post nerf. It seems. Are you allowed to speak on the decision for not having it be pre nerf?
Yeah, this is something we spent a lot of time talking about. Um, when it comes to Classic and it comes to our contemporary player base, we have found that a lot of players, ourselves included, um, love the aspect of Classic where if you plan enough, if you plan far enough in advance, you can actually go in and kind of stomp some content. And it actually ends up feeling really good as long as you plan and you execute. When we were looking at the difficulty of the original Cataclysm's launch
Mm-hmm.
content, it felt like it went a step too far. It felt like it went a place that didn't necessarily work with the player base that we saw consuming our various classic content. Um, it was juxtaposed with what players seem to be enjoying the most. It's still challenging. It's
Mm-hmm.
certainly still challenging. It's still a step up from what we saw in Wrath, um, and we do agree that there is a historical curiosity to see, what was that experience like back when Cataclysm originally launched. Um, but it really seemed to apply to a much smaller proportion of the player base uh, than we would want to create this time capsule experience for. By the time that Cataclysm had wrapped up at the end, it felt like the balance was tuned pretty well,
Mm-hmm.
along with the rest of the class balance that had gone in through that final patch. Uh, so yeah, so that's the way that we're going to proceed for launch for this first tier. Now that being said, we do want player feedback, and we do want to see how players progress through this raid tier. If it turns out that it actually is too easy, or players are burning through it too fast,
Yeah.
then I think we would want to look at something like Firelands and look at ways that we could ramp that up a little bit. I think there's an opportunity there, but no plans to do that just yet. We're just gonna kind of see how things progress as players play through them. And then I would also add, kind of going on to the first question that you asked, the raid testing that's going on now. We're also looking at it through that lens as well. So we're
Okay.
we're seeing how players are progressing where they're roadblocked or wiping repeatedly. And does that feel right? Do we need to make any final adjustments before the raid goes live on May 30th?
Yeah, we just want to be really, really responsive overall to players with this, because ultimately everybody just wants to have a good time. So we want to kind of help find that balance.
Well, thank you. That was a great answer. Is there any consideration for making tier 11 and tier 12 longer, since they were so much better received than tier 13 was? Or are you looking kind of to keep all the phases equal length?
So like we announced, I think about a month ago, what our patch cadence release cadence is planned to be. Mm-hmm. Historically, yeah, there was definitely kind of the feeling that Dragon Soul was maybe around just a little bit longer than everybody really wanted it to, at about 10 months. Ultimately, we don't want to repeat that feeling, but we really want to make sure people have the time to marinate in the content that they enjoy. Firelands had so much cool stuff.
One of the best raids ever.
Yes, amazing raid, really cool questing area, like just everything about it was super memorable. So we want to make sure everybody spends the amount of time, are happy with the amount of time they get to spend in the different sections. So while we do have it generally planned out, we don't have it set in stone right now. Okay. And we're definitely willing to kind of adjust our cadence as needed. We do want to keep it going fast enough that players don't feel like they're stuck or getting bored. Okay. So we definitely want to kind of hit that balance.
Yeah, I would just plus one what Linny said. The last thing we want to do is take something away from players if they're having a really good time in it. And so if it turns out that we're moving too fast, then the option certainly exists for us to put the brakes on a little bit, let's say before we get to Dragons.
Okay, cool. Yeah, that was the next question, is what made you guys decide on the shorter phases and expansion compared to the past ones?
Yeah, it really comes down to, through this whole classic journey, I mean, the modern player base has shown us that with all their knowledge and all their skill, they can race through this content, given everything that they've learned over now for Cataclysm the last 14 years, yeah. I think it is. And so because of that, we sense it and we feel it as players ourselves, that demand for the next thing a lot sooner than it would be back with the original Cataclysm. But as Linny mentioned, it really is about finding that nice balance. We've made educated guesses on how we think that will go and when we think that demand will start to amp up for the next phase. But it is a ongoing conversation and certainly something we want to revisit as we see players actually progress through each of the tiers.
Next one is, can we expect any balance changes on any classes? Kind of like what you guys did with Ret and Feral and Wrath. They're pretty down bad and you guys buffed them up a little bit. Or are you looking to keep Cata the same? Or is it one of those like, we'll see how it goes and, adjust when needed?
That is a fantastic question. Honestly, we're generally really happy with where classes and specs were, like with that final balance patch of 432. Mm-hmm. We're pretty happy with where everything is. That being said, same kind of deal with Wrath, where if there's something that just really feels like it needs a change, we're definitely open to doing it. And especially just with all of the extensive, sorry, my cat is
You're fine.
joining in here. With all of the extensive changes that Cataclysm brought to combat, we really kind of want to give it a little bit of time to see where things are at as well.
Yeah.
And to see what players do with it.
Okay. Or they figure it out too, yeah. Mm-hmm. Okay, to piggyback off that, with the expedited release cadence and everything, how it's just going much faster, are you going to put legendaries or any raid loot valor will be easier to acquire since it's so fast, or do you kind of want people to go into the next patch at 70% bis? Like usually right now we have enough time in Lich King or whatever expansion, everybody's full bis going into the next expansion. It's kind of a worry unless there's like extra loot drops and stuff like that to make up for it.
Yeah, so we don't have anything to announce on that right at this moment. But I will say we are looking to make changes to both Valor and Honor accumulation and caps. But we should have communication going out about that very soon. Okay. But yeah, we recognize that players may be in a state where all of a sudden we're moving everything so fast they may not be able to get the stuff that they want that they want to by the time that we move on to the next thing, and that's not something that we want to have happen. Now that being said, in Classic so far, we have definitely seen, an increased rate by the time that we move on to whatever that next tier is of players getting either full bis or close to full bis than we saw back in our original releases of our Classic expansions. I I think it feels good, but there's certainly, a happy medium there. If everybody gets it, does that make it special? That's certainly not something that we want. We still want it to feel special.
Yeah.
But it's something that is an ongoing discussion with the community and something we're going to continue to have to watch just to make sure it feels right and just challenging enough in the amount of time that players have. But I don't know. That's actually an open question. I wanted to ask you, do you have any opinion on that? Like what the right rate is? Is it increased from the original days, decreased?
I definitely would say some more loot drops or Valor, or when it comes to like Dragon Wrath, like the legendary staff, like as a Warlock main, we're not main proud for that. You're going to your mages and your Ellie shamans and stuff, so I'm kind of worried about, are we ever going to get one? How fast are things going to drop? Can you expedite things? But kind of like we're all just waiting and find out,
Yep, I hear you.
Yeah.
Well, hopefully we'll have some comms on that going out very soon.
Appreciate that.
Stay tuned.
Speaking of changes, are we going to see any changes to LFR with the controversy of all that magicness? Or do you plan on LFR for Demon Soul or Dragon Soul? Sorry.
So currently we are not planning on doing LFR. That is still an overall discussion, though. It's something that's kind of an ongoing discussion because there were so many kind of questions and kind of controversy about it.
Yeah.
So we definitely wanted to do the looking for group or LFD. That was really, really important that we put that in, but we're still not really looking to go with LFR. But again, if that's something that the community is interested in, then we're definitely interested, as well as if there's certain things that the community would like to see go into it and certain changes that would make it really compelling.
Okay. What about any talks about Mythic Plus or Challenge mode, since the client's already on the same as retail and the dungeons are the same state as retail as well? I know a lot of people are talking about it, kind of like how you guys did alpha, beta, gammas, but more towards like kind of a speed running thing.
Well, it's actually kind of an interesting question. We have no plans for that currently. We love the overall discussion. That's really, really interesting. But it's interesting how things are set up because even though we're getting 440 to run on like the modern infrastructure, anything that we want to bring from 440, we have to actively pull over to Classic. So if we were going to do Mythic Plus stuff, we have to actively bring it over. We did that for collections, which was just really exciting. And I think has been a really, really cool ad. But for something like Mythic Plus, we would have to do just a lot to actively bring it over. Like the alpha, beta, gamma type stuff, that is definitely something that we'd be interested in looking into, just because that might fulfill some of that desire for kind of that additional challenge. And it's also something that really fits in the Classic world.
Okay. And I think a question everybody is burning about, is there going to be any bad luck protection planned for Archeology, or is this what we get right here?
Yeah, this has been a fun one.
Yeah, no, it hasn't.
A fun one to discuss because of the various opinions on the Classic team about this. I would say that despite its grindiness for the players who are very much diving into it, hoping to get specific rewards, it has actually been wonderful to see so many people out there doing it and participating in it. Back when Archeology was originally designed, the team wanted people out there in the world and running around and digging, and it's great to see that again. That being said, we recognize that there is a level of grindiness with it, which can go too far, and players can take it too far with zero bad luck protection. We don't have anything to announce prior to launch on that front, but it is something that we are going to continue watching and listening. Although it may not be in time for, let's say, when the raids launch or something along those lines. Yeah, it's weird because there are actually people who actually do really like that grindiness and being out there and being in the world and kind of just chilling and just doing these. But then of course there's the people who are trying to prepare for that first raid tier and trying to get what they need, and they're of a completely opposite mindset. So yeah, it's a complex problem to solve when we are looking to bring something back from the past. But we recognize that the modern player base may not share the same interests as let's say the other half of the player base. So nothing to announce right now, but something that we want to continue to look at and possibly bring changes to in the future.
Keep digging, you know?
Yeah, big agree. It was actually working on Cataclysm. It's been neat hearing like some of the older stories and the older intent. And part of archaeology was meant to be like a gathering profession for everybody, so that everybody could get that exciting, ooh, yellow dot feel as they're running through the world and exploring. And so we want to make sure that we're keeping that piece of it really alive.
Cool. This is a PvP question for the PvPers though. Due to the shorter phases, do you plan to add something to help them out as well, like a conquest catch up or increase the con cap?
Yeah, that's possibly that's something we're potentially looking into. It's certainly possible. For the pre-patch, we already like substantially reduced the price of the Season 8 Wrathful gear so that players could better kind of get their hands on it. I could see us potentially making some changes as we go along. With ultimately, we want to make sure that our PvPers and our PvEers all get the chance to have some fun.
Cool. Any chance that there would be solo queues for Arena and Rated Battlegrounds?
Oh, we don't have any plans for that at this time, but it's something we really enjoy hearing from the community about and kind of like gauging interest around.
Yeah. Okay. And this is a little bit more random, but it's for a lot of us that play SOD and Classic, we're kind of wondering what happens to our SOD characters afterwards. Is there any shot at the end of SOD we can transfer, or has there been talks about moving that into the Cataclysm servers? Obviously, you'd have to level up, but just so we have something to keep how much time we spent on SOD, be able to keep our characters, obviously without the runes and whatnot. I don't know if you guys allowed to speak on that.
We this is also something that's an ongoing discussion for us. We get that Season of Discovery is a season. It will eventually, have an end. But it's been a fantastic place for us to take some really wild swings, including changing up classes or giving them, substantial additions that make them play differently than they did in the original Classic Vanilla. Bringing them into an existing space, whether that be Classic Era or into Cataclysm, poses a ton of risk. Not just technological risk, but also balance risk. We find ourselves in a situation of, would we ever want to take away something from one of those characters to then put it into an environment so it could exist with everybody else's characters that have already existed in that environment, and that sort of solution to solve a problem, taking something away that players have earned or they've unlocked or they've been using in Season of Discovery, isn't something that feels great, or we don't think that it feels great. So there's no plans for something like that right now. But that being said, we also don't want to take away these characters from players just because it's a seasonal realm, and we're having a blast developing this content and progressing through everything with players. There's real achievement that's been accomplished for players with these characters. So we certainly have no plans to delete them or shut the servers down that they're currently on and then delete them or anything along those lines. I know we've done some realm consolidation, but yeah, I think players should feel safe knowing that their character will persist, will stay on. But as far as transferring it somewhere else that exists, there's no plans for that right now. But that could change. We'll see as we continue progressing through these phases of Season of Discovery.
Yeah, we get it. Like, you get attached to your characters. You spend so much time and so much investment in them that we don't want people to just straight up lose them. So we'll kind of work on figuring out what our options are.
Cool. Couple more questions. This is just random, but can we is with MoP Remix around the corner? Is this kind of like flirting with MoP Classic down the road? Is that just, I know it's a seasonal thing that's happening, but can we? I feel like it's safe to assume that we're gonna get MoP Classic, but I don't like to assume anything.
So honestly, we love Pandarans. Mist of Pandaria itself was such an epic expansion. We have nothing to say today regarding a MoP Classic, but if it was a direction that we wanted to go, we really wanted to know that it will be different than the Pandaria remix.
Oh yeah.
Just because of the whole setting and having
retail.
Yeah, and like just being the setting, having the same spells you did back in Pandaria, and just everything else that goes into recreating it to have that nostalgic feel for exactly how it was. So yeah, nothing to announce today, but we definitely loved MoP. It was super fun.
Cool. And the last question is something that everyone's kind of worried about is usually with the past expansion, you guys have been very vocal and in communication, like whoever it is that kind of vary, and kind of feels like with Cata Classic, it's very, what's the word, like short term, kind of like we don't know until it's like right here. Oh guys, this week we're doing this, or next week. Is that going to broaden up a little bit? Or have a little more communication on like what's going on with the expansion? I know you guys are probably busy and that's why at the same time, but you know.
Absolutely. That's something we definitely want to continue to work on. And definitely I would love to have more communication overall with where we're going and what we're doing. Being able to do these interviews are really fun and exciting.
Yeah,
so
they are.
I love getting to do that. But yeah, being able to give you guys more notice than just, oh yeah, BT dubs next week, here we go. So yeah, we definitely want to keep a lot of the communication open with the public, especially because we really enjoy getting the feedback and kind of getting y'all's feels and thoughts about where we're going.
Yeah, I'm glad you raised this. It's something that we started to really ramp up on just before, pre-patch, and then some, and then the weeks since pre-patch. Particularly with like our community team and just getting posts out there on the forums and things like that, more blue posts. But now that we're so close to launch next week on Monday, and we're being able to do these interviews and things like that, my hope, my desire is that we're going to be ramping up communication more and more and more.
Cool. Well, I really appreciate you guys. I have one more little random question that has to do with Cata, and that's what are you guys excited the most about seeing with the launch, whether you're playing it or you're watching it, or what's the favorite aspect of it?
That's a very cool question. Yeah,
mine's Firelands.
There's so many cool little quests and cool little quest lines in Cataclysm. There's like one of my favorites that went into it is Welcome to the Machine.
Yeah.
The first quest going into Silverpine Forest is a Horde member, where you get turned into a quest giver and you get all of the different like stereotypical player NPCs coming up to you with requests and trying to get you to do things.
Yeah.
I'm excited about playing with that one. Having there's another one, Gnome Obliteration?
Yeah.
Where
good one.
Yeah, the ridiculous quest where you're just out in the desert and you have to gather up a bunch of crazed gnomes. And you literally hop into this ball and become this insane Katamari ball where you're just knocking out gnomes, picking them up, and just this ridiculous ball of gnomes rolling through the desert. And that's one that quest is not currently available in Modern. So it'll be fun to kind of jump back in and see that again.
That's dope.
Yeah, I would add, it's been so cool to see people who jumped into the original Cataclysm right at their level 80 characters, never experience any of that 1 through 60 content, and just continue from 80 to 85. People who did that back in the day actually start with new characters at level 1 in Cataclysm and proceed through that level 1 through 60 journey and just see how much work went into it and creativity went into it. There's this quest line in Stone Talon Mountains where you, playing for the Horde, you sort of progress through the ranks of this army, and it ends with Garrosh porting in and murking the leader of your group off of a bridge, which is so cool. And it's been wonderful to see people, new and old, be able to experience moments like that for the first time. There's other things too that exist in Cataclysm Classic, which don't currently exist in the modern game, that you can't find, as Linny alluded to, with things like Bashir, things that are essentially inaccessible in some form or another in the modern game, be recreated and now preserved in Cataclysm Classic. So yeah, I tend to lean towards a lot of that, and being able to do it with an active player base, which is all focused on Cataclysm content right now, because that's what's releasing. So yeah, I don't know. I think there's so much to be excited about, particularly for players who, gosh, just don't remember it as well as they think that they might from 14 years ago, or from players who have simply never experienced it before. It's a great time to jump in, especially, even if it's right at level 1, because of that new content that comes in right at level 1.
Yeah, I've been trying to turn people on to Cata for a year or so now, and I remember when the beta came out, we were one of the first ones in there, and I was just leveling to start, the basic leveling, and so many people from my chat were just like, dude, this is cool. Like, what? I thought the world changed for the worse. I'm like, no, it actually looks like this is really cool. You know what I mean? And then them to the point where I go to my other streamer friends who didn't plan to play Cata, whether they're SOD players or retail players. I'm like, hey, you should just start a level 1 character, pick your favorite race class, and just go. And they're like, all right, I'll do it. And now they're like in love with it, trying to play Cata at the max level soon. Like, I was like, yes, that's the goal, because it really is a good game. People just need to give it a chance. Don't let the past tear up your future fun.
Yeah, it's been great, and something we talk about a lot, which we love getting to see on the Classic team, particularly as we get closer and closer to launch like this, is really that hype start to build. We love Season of Discovery, and we love Hardcore, and we love Wrath Classic, and we have all these different Classic experiences now, and the focus has been on them for so long. But now we're in this very special period of time where people are jumping into Classic either for the first time or Cataclysm, either for the first time or returning to it, and we are seeing that hype start to build, and that love for what the original team created way back then just start to flourish.
Beautiful.
So it's awesome. It really is cool.
Yeah, it's exciting. We've had a lot of people reach out about how Cataclysm was what they started with, and that was kind of their intro into WoW. And so they are getting their nostalgic vanilla experience being able to jump into Cataclysm.
Yeah, gonna be fun. Well, that's all I have for you guys. I really appreciate you guys spending the time with this. I know I speak for the community when I say everybody's gonna appreciate this. So thank you both. I hope you guys have a beautiful launch. I hope the raid testing goes great. And I can't wait to hear from the future.
Thanks so much. And thank you for all the feedback and communication. It's extremely helpful for our Classic team. We've been saying forever that this is a journey that we are building with you, with the players, and we're able to make changes or adjust things or just be able to continue to deliver what the players want. So the communication is fantastic, and we just can't wait to continue this journey now with Cataclysm.
Sounds good. Well, thank you guys.
Thank you so much for your enthusiasm too.
Of course, thank you.
Super, super fun.
Yeah.
Thank you, Fricks.
Bye.
Thanks, man.